Hello, this is a recap of today's live coding event, build a website in Python using Django and Wagtail CMS. This was part 6 of an ongoing series of live coding sessions we've been doing on the Codebuddies community. Briefly, Codebuddies is a global community of code learners who help each other through conversations on Slack and peer-to-peer organized study groups and virtual hangouts. There's a lot of ways you can get involved in the community. As mentioned, the Slack channel, there's an online forum. The entire platform's open source, and there's also articles and videos. It's primarily organized in Hangouts. There's a lot of Hangouts going on, almost one every day. And those Hangouts usually are under the umbrella of a group. There's groups for all sorts of things. I've been working in the Python and Django groups, but there's Go language, Elixir, Rust, PHP, JavaScript, AWS, Android development. I mean, there's so many more. There's bound to be a group that will catch your interest. And on Codebuddies, everyone is both a teacher and a learner, so there's no kind of hierarchy. Everybody's able to learn from one another. The project we've been working on in this live coding series is a next iteration of the Western Friend magazine website. Today we worked on a couple of enhancements for the home page, and we tightened up the content model a little bit. So let's take a look at the code and the interface. When we have a page hierarchy and we want to add child pages, by default Wagtail just lets you add any page type as any underneath any other page type. So when I set up a fresh site after having some kind of troubles with my development environment in the first half of the full live stream, and I added the first child page, I noticed that all of the content types were listed there. So a quick change, just going to, for example, the magazine issue and adding the parent page types, so that magazine issue can only be added underneath the magazine index. Essentially, this magazine index lists all the magazine issues, and that's the only, right now, page where they'll be listed in this form. Similarly, magazine article can only be added underneath a magazine issue. And that way, your editing experience is really snappy. You just add a child page, it already sets you up with the correct content type. Or if I go to, let's see, pages, home, magazine, I only have one issue here, but when I'm viewing that issue, if I had a child page, it's going to be a magazine article. So really simple way to constrain your content hierarchy, both by defining parent page types as an array of models and sub page types. You can go both ways. Cool. Now the other thing, so if I look at this site, at the beginning of the day, the website was really bare bones. We just had this kind of body text on the home page and nothing else really. So what we wanted to do is add this current issue to the front page, as you can see here, focused in on that section. In another live stream, we'll be looking at featured issues. So briefly, to do that on the home page, any model by default will bind to a template of the same name. Oops, this actually should be in the home template. So that's a little bit of magic that that Wagtail does for you, so you don't have to mess with routing very much. So we have a homepage template and the homepage models, and we extended or overrode the context. So whatever by default comes out of the get context, method will populate the template, the corresponding template, and you can override this method. So all we do here is just grab the content from the parent class, sending in the request, and add basically an attribute. It's a dictionary This was a little bit long, but essentially we're going into the magazine issue. What do they call that? Model manager. Getting all of the magazine issues that are live. Now this comes from Wagtail. It's basically there's a publication workflow in Wagtail where you can save things in a draft state or publish right away or submit for moderation. So the live ones will be the ones that are published, and excluding the draft states. Ordering it by the publication date, so we wanted the latest one. The current issue is going to be the latest. I believe this is correct. We actually didn't test it very thoroughly because I only added one issue. And grabbing the first from that query set that comes out and passing that into the template as the current issue. And from there, it's just a matter of double checking that the current issue exists, which I mean it should in most cases, but in any case, maybe it's okay to check that. And then adding a page section with a header, current issue title, and using this nice Wagtail image tag to render the cover image and give it a scaling. It won't actually crop, it just scales it down. So that's what we achieved in about 1 hour today. The first 30 minutes or so was kind of wrestling with the development environment. There was some just weird things that were going on, and I had kind of set up a new I cloned the repository and had to start from scratch, but it's good to remember how to set up a Django project briefly in PyCharm. Django projects, Python projects first, you'll set up an interpreter and install the required packages. For the requirements text, I install the packages through the terminal. Then remember to come to Languages and Frameworks, Django, and enable Django support. And from there, you just set the base directory of the Django project. Point it to your settings module. Either it's going to be one Python file or a folder of settings files, and the manage script. One other detail, under your configuration, when you're running the manage py, you also need to pass this parameter run server. This is the same thing you'll do in the terminal, but what that does for you is just gives you this run button here, so that you can have your server running over here, do some stuff in the terminal, jump into the Python console, and got some nice errors there. Probably configured the secret key. Okay, I'll have to look at that later. But in any case, so yeah, that's the recap of today's work. Let's see. We're getting the project a little bit better organized as well. It's worth mentioning. I have to close this, delete this branch, but essentially we're creating now some issues so that we can have a little bit more of a roadmap and not do things so ad hoc, organizing things by tag. So over the next few weeks or months, you'll be seeing us progress through some of these issues, adding new issues, closing them, opening new pull requests, and hopefully getting feature parity with this current website, and eventually working on content migration. So all of that is just looking down the road. That's the goal, to work on that by next summer, to start migrating the content. Okay, well, I went a little bit long on this recap, but I thank you for your time, and really hope to see you around the Codebuddies community, and like to see what you're working on. Have a great day.